Well, hello there and welcome everyone to the Advisor's Edge podcast. I'm your host, Rob Jacomen, and I am super honored and grateful to have a very exciting guest on the show. But I also want to introduce my co-host, Chad Ramberg. Chad, how are you doing today?
It is nice and sunny today out here, and we are very glad. It's brisk, but it's good. It's a good spring. Well, not spring, but we're getting there.
Awesome. Well, we are all blessed to have a superstar on our show today. And it's none other than Ryan Close of Box Professional Insurance. And Ryan is the head of RevOps for Box Professional. But before we launch into this, and we want to obviously dig in and learn more about you and what you're doing and the impact that you're making on clients and internally there at Box Professional. But explain to us first and foremost, what is a RevOps guy like you do, and what impact are you making with what you do every day?
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on, Chad and Rob. Excited to be here. To answer your question, RevOps, essentially, I kind of take all our systems that we're using at Box Professional Insurance, whether that's Salesforce, Calendly, and make sure that they're working cohesively together to help save pain points with our team here and ensure that they're working cohesively to really maximize our revenue and our spend as a firm. So that's essentially what RevOps positions are doing nowadays.
Awesome. So basically what you're doing is you're focused on how you can apply automations, improve efficiencies, for the purpose of helping to really maximize revenue growth and make everything run in concert and in sync with each other. Is that about right?
Exactly. Yep. You nailed it. 100%.
Excellent. Well, listen, we want to learn more about you today, and I'm going to turn it over to Chad because obviously you guys work together, and Chad's got some great questions for you. And we want to dive deeper into your background, your experience, and what you're really doing to make a positive impact on this industry, and which I think is amazing. And you have a great story to tell. So let's launch right into it.
Yeah. The coolest thing about Ryan, and some people might say, well, why are you having Box team members on? Because it's interesting, hopefully. But also, I think you can learn something from us. And a little bit to know is that Ryan's been doing such a great job with Box Professional, and clients have seen some of the work we've done, and they're like, that's kind of cool. How did you guys do that? And so he's been helping out some of our clients. So we want to let folks know that, and there's a little bit, we're learning to see, how important is this to folks out there. So we're kind of getting that out there. A little bit of background on Ryan. I think we started working together close to 10 years ago, actually at another firm. And Ryan he's done a lot of different help with RIAs, okay, and financial advisory firms. And I think he started out kind of as a sales type person, and then he really started to get good at the support type role. And at Box Professional, he joined several years ago as a support type role. And then you've really grown and developed from there. So Ryan, I'd love to hear from you what that looks like from your perspective.
Yeah, no, that's a good synopsis. Yeah, it's almost been 10 years, which is crazy to think about that I've known you that long, Chad. Yeah, so I've always kind of been a process guy in my mind. That's just how I think. I think if this, then this. So that's the way I'm wired, which is not how everybody's wired. I totally understand that. And that's probably why I wasn't a very successful salesperson. I think if I had maybe known about Salesforce as a tool when I was a salesperson, maybe I could have been pretty successful. But, hindsight is 2020. And so, really, I decided to join Chad and the Box Professional team because of that experience I had with Chad, where we really just kind of think the same way. We're process guys, Chad, you can attest to that. And we're always trying to do things just a little bit differently. And that's what really intrigued me is the previous place was that I was always dreaming of building these awesome things. I think we all have these situations where we're working on something and you're like, man, I shouldn't really be working on this, right? I think a system could do this way better than I could do it. And so that was the leap that I took to join Box Professional, and thinking that, hey, Chad's going to take that risk and try and figure that out too. And so I want to go join and be a part of that. And so this was prior to me. I didn't know anything about Salesforce at this time. And so that's kind of what a lot of this conversation might talk about is Salesforce. But that's kind of what happened when I joined Box Professional. We needed somebody to do this. In order to improve our business, we needed somebody to be the champion of Salesforce. And that's where I kind of stepped in.
Yeah. And the amazing thing is not only were you kind of naturally tuned to it, but Ryan stepped in, and I'm like, oh, the cool thing is Ryan really quickly saw the power that we had besides Salesforce, and then also from a Kaizen perspective, things we were doing. And he's like, oh, what if I work on this? What if I work on that? How can I help here and there? And then he took the bull by the horn, so to speak, and started to do a lot of education and use the tools out there that are available. And then he's been implementing these things into Salesforce and that help us as a team at Box Professional. And most of the stuff that's done, you won't directly see, but I think it really helps the client experience. And so tell us, Ryan, what's some of the cool stuff you've worked on where you're like, here's a big challenge, and you sort of like, okay, we know we have this challenge. What can we do to make it go smoother for the client, better for the client, which in turn makes it easier for us?
Yeah, I think a big thing that we've worked on, Chad, is the digitization of our application. So I think we've all felt the pain points of a broker sending you a blank application and saying, here, fill this out. Right? That's our clients get that all the time in this space. And it's very frustrating, especially on a renewal. You're like, you know who I am. Why is this blank? And so for us, a real goal was, we know a lot about our clients. Let's use what we know, help lift that burden for them, and really highlight the areas that they've really got to pay attention to, the stuff that's going to change year over year. So that is a big lift in and of itself. And then, so that's a lift for the client, a lift for Box Professional, because what we were able to figure out is, hey, we know how to send this out automatically on time, every time. And that, from my experience where I was previously, that wasn't always the case. I was doing all that work. So I was a human, and I get really busy. I can't always send a follow-up email to a client looking for an application. That's just not feasible for the long term. And so what we were able to figure out is, how do we get that on an automated schedule so that those emails are going out, clients are getting those touches, and it's not bombarding them. It happens, once every 2 weeks or so, but it's just a light touch to help keep them on track, So that helps us. I don't have to send an email that was an email template anyway. And the client gets the satisfaction of, hey, they're going to help keep me on course here. And that's what I think is super valuable for the clients.
Can
I bring in for a second and ask, I want to take a step back for a minute, because Chad, you said something really important. And I think, just for context, so people understand the bigger picture, the bigger overarching theme that we're talking about. When you talk about Kaizen, very quickly share if somebody doesn't know what Kaizen is and how this ties into process, automation, improving efficiencies, making the business better, improving, as Ryan, obviously his role is RevOps, improving how you deliver the customer experience. Can you talk about Kaizen in the sense so people have a good understanding of what it is going into this, so they know why you guys do what you do?
Yeah. So Kaizen it's a Japanese word, and we're not very Japanese, obviously, but Toyota they did a Toyota production system and to build Toyotas. And then in America, they were frankly kicking our rear ends and making cars faster and less expensive. And so US came over and looked at what they were doing, and they said, that's a lean system. And that's where you get lean from. Okay. But the reason we go back to, and we don't talk a lot about lean, but we talk about Kaizen because we break those words down. To the best of my understanding, Kai means change. And if you look up and Google Kaizen, you'll see continuous change is how most people translate it into English. But when I look at it and I think about it, most of us know what a Zen garden is, or being Zenful or something like that. That doesn't, in my mind, doesn't really have a direct translation. But if you think of change that's Zenful, it gives you a different picture than continuous change. And so I like to make sure we kind of think about it from that perspective. And then there's a book out there called The Lean Startup. A guy named Eric Ries wrote this book about process improvement for software development. So these are the tools that we use and to learn on that next step. But really, when you really boil it down, it's really simple. You start with the customer wants. What does the customer want? Do we have a minimum viable product that's getting them what they want? And how do we keep improving upon that a little tiny bit every single day so we get closer to what the customer really wants? Yeah. That's the whole thing. Now, everything else I mentioned right prior to this, you can do lots of research and learn about it, but we're trying to keep it simple, keep it clear. And as we know, simple is hard to do.
100%. 100%. Well, we talked about that in our call yesterday. So we always have a team call and we just kind of talk about, we spend the first part of the call talking about wins and sharing wins and getting everybody excited. But we also take some time to talk through something very thoughtfully. And you guys brought this up yesterday, which was awesome. And the difference between that transactional approach, consultative approach, this actually ties in perfectly to what Ryan is building. Is you're really talking about improving the delivery of the customer experience, making it efficient, making it a great experience so that we're not all wasting all this time, which we know in the insurance industry, it can be very laborious. Yeah. Trying to get data and trying to extract data from different sources, it can be a real time constraint. So Ryan, maybe if you could talk about how those things really fit into the underlying goals and the things that you want to accomplish as a RevOps guy, how does that impact the end customer?
Yeah, so I think it ties in nicely with what Chad was talking about with Kaizen, because every decision we're making, it's with the end client in mind. Okay, so there are certain things that maybe we'll work on internally that is only for internal use. But the reason we're doing that is so that we can spend more time working with clients, answering their questions, and so what and so forth. Okay. But then also, yes, utilizing systems to give them a better client experience, because I think we've all had client experiences that are just really bad. And the only real tangible, or I guess not even tangible, but time is our biggest asset, right? That's a thing that we all only have a certain amount of time with of living. And so I don't want to spend all my time, or, if I'm a client, I don't want to spend my time filling in the same question every year. That is not how I want to spend my time. So those are the types of, or the way that we're thinking for these clients. And something that's also interesting to note, Chad, right, where we're talking about, we're doing what the client wants a lot. And Eric Ries talks about this in the book, is the client doesn't always know what they want, right? If you can do these testing or like focus groups and ask, like, what do you want? Well, the most transformative things that can happen are often things that they don't even say. And so that's where we really need to, where Box Professional is really trying to focus, is reading those tea leaves of, hey, we're going to make this small improvement and let's test it and see how the market responds to it. So that's really the key with Kaizen and what the kind of the ethos is behind Box Professional Insurance.
I would love to hear, Ryan. So one of the interesting things we've been learning in the work that we're doing here is because there is so much power in the ability to automate a process, right? And right now we're going through this right now. We've automated a lot of process and we got over our skis a little bit, and it caused some challenges, and we're working through that. But tell me about what that looks like, maybe from because you've also helped some of our clients develop their stuff. So can you give me an example of what does that mean when we get over our skis, and why does that happen?
Yeah, that's a great question, Chad. I think a part of that comes down to, okay, so when I think about my past, I had the lofty goals, visions of how I want things to look. I think everybody's got that for their company. But a lot of times advisors, they're really good at being advisors. That's their goal. That's what they wanted to do, but they're also business owners. And so a lot of times you kind of have to wear multiple hats. You know, this as a small business owner, Chad, that sometimes you don't get to work on the things that you just want to work on. You want to work with just clients, but if you only just do that, then you're going to have problems, because then you're going to hate your CRM. You're going to hate all these other things. And so I think a very important thing to realize is that there's people out there to help you, if you know it or not. There are people that can help you with that. It's just, how much do you value having a seamless CRM, let's say, right? And sometimes you're not going to know until you experience or see what somebody else is working through or has built, and then it clicks in your mind and you say, wow, that's a really cool process. I have a use case that could be directly tied to that. And so then the question becomes, do you think you can do that, or do you need to hire outside help? And only you're going to be able to answer that truthfully, you know, as the business owner. But that's where people like myself or other consultants can step in and help you out, because we can understand Salesforce really well. You're going to understand your business really well. And it's really important to marry those two together. And something that doesn't necessarily tie in with this exactly, but the best thing that advisors can do if they're going to approach a consultant, this is what I tell people: you need to have a standard. Okay. Everybody wants automation. Everybody wants this to do exactly what I want it to do. But if there's no standard when it comes to automation, right? If this field is supposed to get checked every time for an automation to work, and it's not getting checked, then it's never going to work. Okay. So that's where you kind of have to have that structure and that standard to help set that up for success. And so that's part one: have the standard and be able to communicate if that standard is being followed and being truthful to the consultant, right? I've had times with clients that are, you know, hey, I've got this, but maybe they're not understanding that there's other members of the team that they're doing something different. And so my stakeholder, the main advisor who wants me to work with them, says, here's how it's being done. And then they'll come back to me and like, hey, what you built isn't working. And I say, okay, why isn't it working? And it turns out, you know, this other advisor here is using something different. And so it's not updating this field as we expected it to. Luckily, it was a quick, easy fix. But that's the kind of information that's super, super helpful for advisors who are using a CRM, using any sort of technology, really, is have that standard if you want automation to work.
That's a great example. You know, it's kind of funny to me. It's like, and I think there's just something this week I found in our accounting process where something wasn't getting done, and I don't know that we had a standard around it. So we got to establish a standard or do something to make sure it's known, and then everything will work really smooth.
Yeah.
That's great.
So I have a question, Ryan.
Yeah.
This would be really interesting, because I'm just thinking about who might be listening or who might be watching. So let's get really practical. Let's roll up our sleeves here and talk about the things that because you guys can nerd out all day long. Trust me. And I can probably hang with you for a little while, and then it's like, man, it's way over my head. But if we take an advisor who's a business owner and somebody who really wants to optimize process, who wants to improve how they're running the business internally, and understands the concept of automation. Because I'm also a big believer that just because you can automate something doesn't mean that you should, or that it's always a good idea. It all depends, like you said, on the standards. What standards? What are you looking for? What are you looking at? If you reverse engineer the process, here's the end result and outcome or the problem that we're solving for.
Yeah.
Let's reverse engineer that and see if we can come up with a solution that is a seamless, smooth running thing so that you can focus on seeing more clients and not have to be working on the business all the time or in the business all the time. You're actually working on your business and seeing clients. Let's talk about a real live example where this situation, like you were able to help an advisor who came to you and said, hey, we would love to do what you're doing because this sounds amazing. How would you then go about that process? Where would you start, or give us an example of somebody you've been working with right now and helping them to achieve that goal or solving that problem that they came to you for?
Yeah, it's a great question. So let's take I got a couple examples. So I'll run through the first one. So a common problem that advisors have, especially when it comes to their CRM, they want to know, when's the last time I talked to this person? Okay. How can I easily identify whether that's a phone call, an email, any in-person visit? Okay. So a pretty simple thing to think about, right? Oh, a non-automation person is just gonna be like, just go punch in a date and time every time you do that. Is that the best option? But that's where it becomes more difficult, because that would maybe be the initial where you start. And that's a part of Kaizen, right? Okay. So Kaizen is you do continuous little bit of changes. You could take a baby step forward to get to where you want to go. So maybe that's the first step. Excuse me. That's the first step. Where they approach me about it, I can think about it in the fact that, okay, when they send an email records being created, when they're logging a call records being created, when they have a Teams meeting, they're creating what's called an interaction summary. And that is another record. So what I can do is I can trigger automations off of that say, hey, if a record gets created and it's tied to this household, take that created date and put that on my last interaction date box, so that a client or an end user, an advisor, can come down and they can have a whole report. They can have a report that says, hey, pull me a list of people that I haven't talked to since, let's say, December, right? I want to reach out to these people and make a concerted effort to work with them. So that's a solution that we have found, or I have implemented with a client, that takes the guesswork out of when did I last reach out to them. So that's an example. I think number one. A more complex example that I am currently working on is it's a group that is heavily in alternatives. Okay. So about 90% of their book is alternative investments. And so a part of that, there's different real tax structure around that. They have to fill out these 990T forms, and it's a K1 and all this kind of stuff. And so what they're trying to do is basically just, it's so easy and simple in your head. You say, I just want to have the system email the clients which securities they have, which investments they have that require a K1. And that's a very complex process in and of itself. So I've been working on that for a couple months with them to really, one, build out our standard so that we can have the right data in the right places, because that's really what you need when it comes down to automation. You need the right data in the right places to make sure that you can program something to go get that data and then shoot off an email to the client. So that's a little bit more of a complex one that I'm working on. Is that?
Yeah. So what you're saying is, if we're talking about the rolling up the sleeves and getting your hands dirty and saying, the client wants this, let's reverse engineer. How do we help them achieve that thing?
Yep.
But what I'd love to know, and I think is also valuable, is, and Chad, you can chime in here too, is when you think about the end result or outcome of solving that problem from the client's perspective, and what I mean is that advisor's client.
Okay. Yeah.
What you're doing is, and what I'm hearing you say is, that can improve the customer experience. It can improve retention. it can improve the sense of, wow, we have a real relationship here and they understand our needs. They understand like how to service an account, like they and me, like they know how to serve me.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about the benefits of why an advisor would want to implement these kinds of solutions and these kinds of automations to improve the client experience and that relationship that they have with their clients.
Yeah, that's a great question. So let's take that 990T K1 example. So what that does for the advisor's client really just makes it straightforward so that they can tell their whoever they're working on with their taxes, here's what I need. This is exactly what I need. I've got it in an email, in a table. It just says, I need a K1 for this. I need a K1 for this. I need a K1 for this. And so it's almost like you're spoon feeding them just exactly what they need. And so just it becomes, the alternative to that is, the advisor just sends an email each time one of these comes in, says, hey, you need this one. Oh, you need this one. It's disjointed emails that you're probably going to lose in your inbox. And it becomes a lot more difficult to find and analyze what it is. Nobody likes doing their taxes. I want to be able to just say, here's what I need. There we go. And that's a better client experience than, like what I said, disjointed emails, having to scrape through your email inbox and find which securities it is that are requiring you to have these forms.
Or from the advisor's perspective, you might have a whole handful of clients that need the 1099s and they're pretty savvy and they know that. So you get a bunch of calls and or emails right at, February 3rd.
Yeah.
And you're like, where are all these K1s I need? And then the advisor's sitting there going, oh crap, okay, yes, I do have them here. And you're all of a sudden, recovering or putting out a fire, right?
Exactly.
And maybe you're super organized and you're like, great, no problem, here they are. And you just send them off. But if we can start to put those pieces together in a way that you can find an easier way, one step to make it easier now. And then all of a sudden it's like going down a path. You see, oh, I just got over this rise. Now I can see another hill we need to get over. Yeah. And when we figure out how to automate the next step. So this is why doing it one step at a time. I mean, everybody loves the idea of, the genius that comes in and is like, you create something that just like solves all our problems all at once, right?
Magic wand.
That's right. If we had a magic wand, we would use it.
Unicorns and rainbows.
Right. Not real life. So, but this is a way that we found we can actually keep moving towards that better reality in the future.
Yeah. Hey, Chad, I have a question for you. So anybody in the insurance industry who might be listening or watching today, how is the work that Ryan's been doing internally inside of Box Professional? Because I know he's working with a lot of your clients who are financial advisors, RAAs. What has this done to improve the customer experience and the delivery of that experience for Box Professional clients? Because to me, that's also, and I think where I'm going with this is by you guys sharing openly the things that you're working on and that you're trying to do to improve as a business, as a company, your clients are seeing the result and the benefits of that. And so they're probably asking questions like, wow, we would love to do something like that too. Like, tell us a little more about how you guys implemented that, because it often seems like a big mountain to climb for somebody. But the way you both are painting this is like, it doesn't have to be a massive mountain. Maybe it's like you take the first step and you just improve this thing, and then we can improve this thing. And then it's almost like you look at all the different constraints and just take one at a time. And then it doesn't feel like this big obstacle or this big thing that you have to solve right now. So talk a little bit about how you guys have, what I'm saying is you're a product of the product. You guys have already done a lot of this stuff. And now you're just sharing and passing along your knowledge and your experience with others to help others improve their businesses. So how did you come to this discovery?
Well, we first started with, and this is the hardest part, is to say, look, we're not perfect. We live in an imperfect world and we have problems every single day. So what are those problems or those constraints that come up that are holding us back? Okay. And that's where it first started. And I had certain constraints before Ryan joined, and he's a smart dude. So we cleaned some of those up pretty quick. And then we got really serious about being brutally honest with ourselves as what's our real challenge, to impeding us helping the client. And helping the client means being there for them, which means if we're distracted by paperwork or whatever else, we're not going to be able to be there for them. And then we start, it's hard because you're like, once you figure out, as you practice this, all you see is messes all over the place, problems. It's emotionally difficult some days because you're like, I'm so tired of problems. But then as an insurance broker, we all have to be honest. If the world was perfect, we wouldn't be around. No one would need us.
That's right.
So anyway, that's where it started. And then as we started it's a practice, every day focusing on that. And we have a rhythm, we call that our tack time, and seeing we're measuring against ourselves to improve a little bit every day. And then as we started seeing those improvements come through, we saw some real results from it. And then clients eventually started asking, say, that looks pretty cool. Hey, we have Salesforce. Can you help us do that? And then, last month, Ryan and I, actually, this has been a conversation probably over the last 6 months. We're talking about, it's like, well, some people are really valuing this. They seem like they want it. Maybe we can help, not just keep it to ourselves. So we're trying to figure out how to do that well. And so those are some of the components as we go along. I hope that makes sense. Or maybe I got a little off track.
100%. Now, have you guys designed an offer around this? Like, is this something that you're actively offering to those who are in this industry who are leveraging Salesforce as their primary tool internally? Or are you guys kind of in that product market fit mode where you're just trying to prove or show the results and the outcomes by working with a smaller group of individuals or individual financial advisors? How are you guys going about this process? Like, talk a little bit about what that journey has looked like.
So shortly, we're not to the point of scale yet. So we're a boutique insurance broker, right? And it's very important that we take care of that part of our work. But at the same time, we recognize if the clients are asking for it, what can we do? And then I'm going to let Ryan go from here.
Yeah. It goes a little bit to Kaizen. We're a little bit in the product market fit, but we're actively doing the work. I have clients per se, but my day-to-day job is still Box Professional Insurance. It's almost Box Professional is a training ground, and we have the ability to step out and go help these clients. And so we're taking the temperature of the market and seeing if there's value in it. And what we are finding is there is. And Chad, and I think, can attest to that too. We actually got an email 2 days ago where it said exactly that. Hey, this is really cool. I've got a use case that we could do something similar. How did you do it? And so I had a call with them today, and I could just see the pain in their face, in their eyes of, one of the things that they're battling is basically duplicating information, right? They send a PDF to the client, and then they want that in their Salesforce. And so then they have somebody that's an admin at their firm just type in that information. And again, like we were talking about, that's painful. That's painful to watch. That's painful to have somebody do that. And so we understand that. And that was the pain we had with applications. And so that's the problem we tried to solve. And problems are very similar. It doesn't matter if you're an insurance brokerage, a financial advisor. There's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of information like that you just have to do. And so how can you find a good way to battle those? And that's where, for us, it's been Salesforce. And we think that other people that use Salesforce could really learn a lot from us. And so that's what we're trying to do.
It's amazing. And what I think is a real testimony to here's what often happens. You hear this from a lot of these business gurus who have launched and like these startups. And the thing that they often say is the ones that are successful are the ones that are solving problems and serving others where they have solved that problem for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, we know there's other people out there who we can help.
Yeah.
And we just have to go find them and say, hey, here's what we do. Here's what we did. Do you have this problem? And if you do, we can help you solve it. And I think that's the cool part of entrepreneurship. And that's a cool part of business is even though you guys, your primary business is serving the financial services industry as an insurance broker, but you guys also recognized when I talk about a niche, like what niche should I go after, Rob? And I'm like, go after the niche that you can best serve.
Mm-hmm.
And where, it's usually about the problems that you had when you were building something are usually the same problems that you are best designed to serve for somebody or to solve for someone else. And I think that's what you guys are really doing here is you're recognizing there's an opportunity to solve. Ryan, you used the perfect word. You said pain.
Mm-hmm.
If you can solve that pain, and you're going to help a lot of people. And that's the whole goal of business is to serve people at the highest level, whatever your calling is, and solve problems. And that's where you add the most value. So
Yeah.
I love what you guys are doing. I've always been intrigued by it. Chad, I know that this is one step in many future episodes to come where we really dive deeper into Kaizen and automation. And I know this is just the first step in I'm guaranteeing you that Ryan's going to be a guest on the show again and also share more stories about how he's been able to help a lot more people. And that's what I think is so cool.
Yeah. It's really cool, the work we're all doing together. I'm really happy to have Ryan with us. It's a learning by doing proposition because that's from that Kaizen perspective is that we learn as we go. And boy, learning is hard. So it looks cool, but it's a hard work that's getting in there. And we are reminded of that, especially when we learn something really great. And then what happens is just really funny is once you learn it, you're like, why didn't I get that before? That was so obvious. That's when you found something really great. And when you're like,
so funny, people see that you're like this one-hit wonder, like instant success. But what they didn't realize is the 2,000 hours worth of pain and struggle that it took to get there that nobody had a chance to see you do, or, no one's seeing behind the scenes. But that's what I loved about this show is that Chad and I, that's one of the missions we have. We can come on and say, hey, let's lift open the hood or pull back the curtain and share with us what you've been doing behind the scenes so that someone can learn from all the mistakes that we made, and that's part of my mission too. The reason I started my business is because I made all these mistakes. And I realized that after talking to the more people I talked to about that thing, the more people came out of the woodwork where they're like, yeah, we have that problem too. What do you have in mind? How are you going to help us solve that? And I think that's the genesis of innovation and the genesis of really serving at the highest levels when you can help add that kind of value to somebody and that they can make their business better. They can make more money. They can also see more clients. They can be in front of more clients. That's where you start to see the fruits of your labor.
Yep.
100%.
So here's what I want to do it a little bit differently than we normally do, Rob.
Mm-hmm.
As we're landing the plane, I want you to wrap it up this time.
I feel like I interviewed the two of you guys, which is, what, that's the beauty. It's our show and we get to do what we want and just kind of, call the shots here. And so Ryan, we always love to close the show with something that I think is really touches my heart is I love to see the other side of somebody. And I want you to imagine for a minute that you're, several years have gone by and you're now retired and you're either sitting on the beach drinking a margarita or you're sitting there on top of the mountain and you're just kind of looking out there and you're saying to yourself, man, I've made it. Like I really made, I made things happen. I want you to just share with us when you're looking back on your life and your career, what legacy do you want people to remember you most by? Like looking back in your career, what do you want people to remember you most by?
It's a good question. And I think almost kind of how I think about it, what do I want on my tombstone? Maybe a little bit. I think I would want people to think about, oh, he was a very curious problem solver. Because that's, I think, those two things together are really what can drive innovation and change, is having that as your nature. And so I would want people that I've worked with and interacted with to almost, in a sense, remember how it was and think about, wow, because we solved these problems and Ryan helped us solve these problems, there's a lot less pain in my life. So Chad's laughing because I always tell him this. I say, we need to, all the new BPI team members, they need to go back to the days when it was just you and me, Chad. Because right when I came on board, we couldn't even operate. We'd probably need 10 more people in order to operate the way that we were doing it. And so I always want people to kind of remember how things used to be. And I think because we always get fascinated by the shiny new thing that comes out. But I think it's most important to remember how things used to be and kind of recall that. And so I think that kind of hits on it. So I would want people to remember that I helped them solve a problem. And I hope that problem really lifted a lot of pain off their shoulders.
Awesome.
I mean, what can you say, man? You said that was probably one of the best responses I've ever heard. Like, it's like, it's actually, it makes me sometimes feel emotional because I'm like, man, that's the kind of impact that you want to make in someone's life. If you can take that pain off of somebody and you can really make an impact, positive impact, and think about the ripple effect of that one thing that you did for them that just set in motion that impact in that direction. That's just absolutely magnificent. I love that, Ryan. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Chad, thank you so much for being my co-host here. And we love doing this show. Guys, if you really love what we're talking about, feel free to reach out to Ryan and Chad about what they can potentially do to help you. And Ryan, just so everybody knows, like, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, obviously there's my BPI email. I think Chad and I are working on potentially, branding this as a service. So we'll probably have some sort of reachable, landing page that we can point to people to in the future. But the best thing is just to email. You can even email my personal email. I don't care about that. It's just my name, ryan.close@gmail.com. Easy. Or the Box Professional one, that works as well. Just go to the website, and I'm sure we have a contact us page that you can it'll go to a generic inbox. But yeah, we're happy to help you. Hopefully identify some problems and knock them out of the park so they're no longer problems for you.
Lift that pain right off of someone's shoulders.
Yeah.
Well, listen, we really appreciate you, Ryan. We are so honored and grateful and blessed to have someone like you on. And so it's really an honor to have this time with you. And we will definitely put all the contact information in the show notes. So if anybody wants to reach out to you, they'll be able to do that. And Chad, thank you for being just an awesome, this has been an awesome episode all around. I don't know. I feel like we keep one-upping each other over and over, which is like, isn't that the whole essence of Kaizen is like, hey, we did really well on our last episode, but man, we really knocked it out of the park on this one. And we're just getting better. So that's what I'm seeing. Ryan, thank you for sharing that piece of wisdom on looking back, because when I look back on what Chad and I, how we started this, we're like, I mean, it wasn't like the best.
It's hard to look back sometimes. It is.
I look back at our videos and I'm going, why did I say that? Or like, I looks terrible. Or you know what? There's a cat laying on the bed in the background. Like,
you're killing me.
We had to throw that one in there. But listen, I hope everyone enjoyed this episode. Again, guys, thank you so much. Please, if you like this show, like and subscribe to our Advisor's Edge podcast. We'd love to hear from you and share your ideas, share your thoughts. What things do you guys want to see from us that that we should maybe explore even more? And we would be happy to. And also, we're also always on the lookout for amazing guests. So let us know if you have anybody in mind. But guys, thank you so much. Have an awesome and blessed day. And we will see you again soon on the next episode of the Advisor's Edge podcast. Take care.